The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the mahogany table as 20 men in expensive suits fell silent. Monique's hands trembled against the silver tray she carried, her heart hammering so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. She'd been invisible for 3 months, just another black maid serving coffee and clearing plates in Antonio Valentini's mansion. That's how she needed it to stay. But tonight, everything changed. "Stop!" His voice cut through the room like a blade. Deep, commanding, absolute. Every head turned toward the man at the table's head. Antonio Valentini, the most feared Mafia boss in New York, rose from his chair with predatory grace. His dark eyes, usually cold as winter steel, fixed on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "You," he said, his Italian accent wrapping around the single word. "Come here." Monique froze. This was it. Somehow he'd discovered her secret. The false name. The hidden past. The reason she scrubbed floors in a mansion when she once... "Now," he commanded softly. 20 pairs of eyes watched as she crossed the room, each step feeling like walking toward her execution. If you want to discover what Antonio saw in Monique that night, and how a simple maid captured the heart of New York's most dangerous man, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this one to life. 6 hours earlier, Monique had stood in the mansion's industrial kitchen, her reflection barely visible in the stainless steel refrigerator. At 28, she looked older. Exhaustion had carved subtle lines around her eyes, and her once confident posture had become the hunched shoulders of someone trying to disappear. "Table 6 needs clearing," barked Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper. "And don't take forever like last time. Mr. Valentini's having important guests tonight." "Yes, ma'am." Monique grabbed the tray, her voice barely above a whisper. Important guests. That meant Mafia business. That meant staying invisible, keeping her head down, and absolutely not drawing attention to herself. She'd been working at the Valentini mansion for 3 months now, ever since everything fell apart. The brownstone in Brooklyn she'd lost, the career she'd abandoned, the life she'd carefully built over a decade, destroyed in one night because she'd witnessed something she shouldn't have. Now she was Monique Davis, not her real name, a maid with no past and, hopefully, no future in this dangerous world. She just needed enough money to disappear properly. 6 more months of saving every penny, and she could start over somewhere far from New York. The mansion sprawled across 5 acres in the Hamptons, a monument to wealth she couldn't fathom. Marble floors stretched endlessly. Original artwork worth millions hung on walls. The wine cellar alone could fund a small country. And Antonio Valentini owned it all. Monique had seen him only 3 times in 3 months. Each encounter lasted seconds. Him striding through a hallway in a perfectly tailored suit, surrounded by armed men. His presence so commanding that even the air seemed to still. He never looked at the staff. They were invisible to him, interchangeable parts of his household machinery. That's what she'd counted on. She pushed through the service door into the formal dining room, keeping her eyes down. The table could seat 30, but tonight hosted only 8 men, all wearing suits that cost more than her entire year's salary. Cigars burned in crystal ashtrays. Whiskey glasses caught the light. "The shipment arrives Tuesday," someone said in Italian. "The Russians won't be happy." Monique's hands stilled for a fraction of a second. She understood every word. "Don't react," she told herself. "You don't speak Italian. You're nobody. Nothing." She cleared plates mechanically, practiced at being invisible. Years ago she'd been different, confident, educated, fluent in 4 languages. But that woman died the night she fled with nothing but the clothes on her back. "Mr. Valentini will handle the Russians," another man replied. "He always does." She reached for a wineglass and her sleeve rode up slightly, exposing the edge of a scar on her forearm. Quickly, she tugged it down. "Careful, girl." One of the men waved dismissively. "These glasses are worth more than you make in a year." She nodded mutely, avoiding eye contact, swallowed the bitter taste of humiliation. She'd grown used to it, the way wealthy people looked through her, spoke about her as if she couldn't hear, reduced her existence to her uniform. The kitchen was a temporary refuge. She loaded the dishwasher, her mind elsewhere. The conversation she'd overheard troubled her. Shipments. Russians. She didn't want to know. Couldn't afford to know. "Monique," Mrs. Chen appeared. "Mr. Valentini's private meeting starts in an hour." The conference room needs to be perfect. Fresh flowers, coffee service, the works. I thought Maria called in sick. You're doing it. Her stomach dropped. The conference room was where Antonio conducted his most private business, where decisions of life and death were made, where nobody wanted to be noticed. Mrs. Chen, maybe someone else. Are you refusing? The older woman's eyes narrowed. Monique swallowed hard. Refusing meant questions. Questions meant attention. Attention meant danger. No, ma'am. An hour later, she stood in the conference room, arranging white orchids in a Venetian vase. The room intimidated her, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. A table carved from a single piece of black walnut. Leather chairs that probably cost 5 figures each. She'd just finished setting out the coffee service when the doors opened. Antonio Valentini entered first. Monique's breath caught despite herself. She'd never been this close to him before. He was tall, at least 6'3", with broad shoulders that filled out his charcoal suit perfectly. His black hair was styled back, revealing a face that belonged in Italian Renaissance paintings. Strong jaw, Roman nose, lips that seemed cruel until you noticed the laugh lines at the corners. A tattoo peeked above his collar, elegant script in Italian she couldn't quite read, but it was his eyes that paralyzed her. Dark, intelligent, and currently sweeping the room with the focus of a predator checking for threats. Those eyes landed on her. For one eternal second, he looked directly at her. Really looked. Not through her like she was furniture, but at her. Something flickered in his expression, too quick to name. Then he turned away, and she could breathe again. "Gentlemen," he said in English, his accent turning the word into something exotic. "Sit." 20 men filed in. Capos, soldiers, underbosses, the hierarchy of the Valentini crime family. Monique recognized some faces from news reports, though she tried not to follow such things anymore. She moved toward the exit, praying to be dismissed. "Coffee," Antonio said without looking at her. "Leave the service." She nodded, hands shaking as she poured. The room filled with tension as thick as smoke. These weren't businessmen discussing quarterly reports. These were dangerous men planning dangerous things. Pour the coffee. Don't listen. Don't understand. Don't exist. But her mind, traitorous, well-educated, automatically translated as conversation, shifted to Italian. "The Russo family is moving on our territory in Queens," said a silver-haired man. "We need to respond." "Killing their lieutenant would start a war," another argued. Antonio remained silent, fingers steepled, his expression unreadable. He radiated control. Every man in the room waited for his judgment, like subjects before a king. Monique finished pouring and moved toward the door. "Wait." Antonio's voice froze her mid-step. Slowly she turned. He was looking at her again, and this time his gaze held something she couldn't identify. Curiosity? Suspicion? "You've worked here how long?" he asked in English. 3 months, sir." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Your name?" "Monique Davis, sir." He studied her for a long moment, and she fought the urge to fidget under that penetrating stare. Could he see through her lies? Did he somehow know? "You may go," he finally said. She fled. In the hallway, she pressed her back against the wall, heart racing. That look. The way he'd studied her face as if memorizing it, as if he'd seen something. "You're paranoid," she told herself. "He barely noticed you." But her instincts, honed by survival, screamed otherwise. That night, Monique lay in her tiny room in the staff quarters, unable to sleep. The mansion never truly rested. She could hear footsteps in distant hallways, low voices, the occasional slam of a car door as men came and went on mysterious business. Her room was sparse, a single bed, a dresser, a bathroom smaller than most closets, but it was safe, anonymous. Nobody here knew who she really was. Monique Laurent didn't exist anymore. That woman, the translator who'd worked for the UN, who spoke 6 languages, who'd had an apartment in Manhattan and a promising future, died 2 years ago. She died the night she'd been working late, translating documents for what she thought was a legitimate import-export company, the night she'd stumbled onto evidence of human trafficking, the night she'd tried to go to the police and discovered the police were bought, the night a man with dead eyes told her, "Forget what you saw or we'll make sure nobody finds your body." She'd run, changed her name, destroyed her credentials, became invisible. And now, somehow, she'd ended up working in the home of New York's most powerful crime boss, pretending to be an uneducated maid who understood nothing. The irony would be funny if it wasn't terrifying. A sound pulled her from dark memories. Footsteps in the hallway outside her room. Heavy. Male. They stopped outside her door. Monique's blood turned to ice. A shadow appeared under the door. Someone was standing there. Just standing. She held her breath, not daring to move. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps retreated. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Monique moved through her duties like a ghost, exhaustion making her clumsy. She'd convinced herself the footsteps had been her imagination, or a guard on patrol, or anything except what her paranoia suggested. "You look terrible," whispered Carmen, another maid, as they changed bed linens in one of the guest suites. "Rough night?" "Couldn't sleep." Monique smoothed the silk sheets with practiced efficiency. Everything in this house was excessive. Even the sheets were Italian, thread count in the thousands. "Girl, you gotta learn to tune it out. The things that happen in this house..." Carmen shook her head. Better not to think about it. "What things?" The question escaped before Monique could stop it. Carmen shot her a sharp look. "You really don't want to know. Trust me. Keep your head down, collect your paycheck, and don't ask questions. That's how you survive working for the Valentinis." A door slammed somewhere below them. "Dove diavolo è lei?" Antonio's voice carried up the stairs, sharp with anger. "Where the hell is she?" Both women froze. "Il capo è arrabbiato," Carmen whispered in broken Italian. "The boss is angry." She glanced at Monique. "Someone's in trouble." Heavy footsteps climbed the stairs. Mrs. Chen appeared, face tight with tension. "Monique, Mr. Valentini wants you in his office, now." The room tilted. Carmen's eyes went wide with sympathy, or was it relief that it wasn't her? "Did he say why?" Monique's voice barely worked. "When Antonio Valentini summons you, you don't ask why. You go." Mrs. Chen's expression softened slightly. "Whatever you did, girl, apologize. Quickly." The walk to Antonio's office felt like a death march. Her mind raced through possibilities. Had he discovered her real identity? Had someone recognized her? Had she made a mistake last night, reacted to something said in Italian? 2 armed guards flanked the heavy oak doors. They didn't search her, but their presence sent a clear message. Antonio Valentini was not a man you crossed. One guard knocked. "La ragazza è qui." The girl is here. "Mandala dentro." Send her in. The office was masculine elegance. Dark wood, leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with volumes in Italian, English, and Latin. A massive desk commanded the room, and behind it, framed by windows overlooking the estate, sat Antonio Valentini. He wasn't wearing a suit jacket. His white shirt was rolled to the elbows, revealing muscular forearms and the elaborate tattoo that snaked up his right arm, a design of roses and thorns that somehow seemed both beautiful and threatening. "Sit." He gestured to a chair across from him. Monique sat, hands clasped in her lap to hide their trembling. Antonio studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he pushed a file across the desk. "Monique Davis," he read, 28 years old, no family, no permanent address before 3 months ago, no employment history except brief stints at various restaurants and hotels. He looked up. "Strange, don't you think?" Her mouth went dry. "Sir, a woman of 28 with no past, no digital footprint, no social media, no college records, no credit history beyond 3 months ago." He leaned forward. It's almost as if Monique Davis didn't exist before this year. Oh, God. He'd investigated her. Of course he had. A man in his position would vet everyone in his home. How had she been so stupid? I had some troubles," she managed. "Started over. Fresh start." "What kind of troubles?" "Personal, sir. I'd rather not. When someone enters my home, I make it my business to know everything about them." His voice remained soft, but steel underlay every word. "So I'll ask again. What kind of troubles?" "Think. Lie convincingly, or tell enough truth to be believable." "Abusive relationship," she said, the words tasting like ash. It wasn't entirely false. She had been trapped, threatened, terrorized, just not by a boyfriend. "I had to leave everything behind, change my name, start over where he couldn't find me." Something shifted in Antonio's expression. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "His name? I don't want to talk about him." "His name." Each word was carved from ice. Why did he care? Unless he thought she was a threat. A plant from a rival family. Someone sent to spy. James, she said, inventing desperately. James Morrison. But that was in Chicago. It's not relevant here. Antonio pulled out his phone, typed something, then set it aside, probably having his people check if James Morrison existed. Would they find the fake identity she'd created, or would they find nothing and know she was lying? Last night, he said, changing tack, in the conference room you poured coffee. Yes, sir. Did you understand what was said? Her heart stopped. This was it. Deny or admit. No, sir. I don't speak Italian. I see. He stood moving around the desk with predatory grace. So when Luca mentioned the shipment from Naples, you didn't understand? No, sir. And when Giuseppe discussed the Russian problem in Queens? I don't know what they said, sir. I was just serving coffee. He moved closer and she forced herself not to flinch. He towered over her, and this close she could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her dizzy. Look at me, he commanded softly. She raised her eyes to his. This close she could see flecks of amber in the dark brown, could see the faint scar on his left cheekbone, could feel the raw power radiating from him like heat. If you're lying to me, he said, voice deadly quiet. If you're a threat to my family, I will know, and when I do... He didn't finish, didn't need to. I'm not lying, sir. I'm just trying to survive. That's all. For a long moment they stood frozen, her seated, him looming, the air between them crackling with tension. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression changed. Surprise flickered across his face before he controlled it. Get out, he said. Return to your duties. She stood on shaking legs and walked toward the door. Monique, she turned. If you ever need protection from this James Morrison, Antonio said carefully, you tell me. Capiche? The offer shocked her. Why would a Mafia boss offer to protect a maid? Yes, sir, thank you, sir. She fled, not understanding what had just happened. In the hallway, she pressed her hand to her racing heart. That had been too close, far too close. She needed to be more careful, more invisible. Behind the closed door, Antonio Valentini stared at his phone. His security team had found no James Morrison in Chicago, connected to a woman matching Monique's description. They'd found no Monique Davis before 3 months ago, but they had found something else. A facial recognition match to a woman named Dr. Monique Laurent. Translator. Worked for the UN. Disappeared 2 years ago under suspicious circumstances. Fluent in 6 languages, including Italian. Antonio's jaw clenched. She'd lied to his face. Understood every word last night, had been listening, comprehending, cataloguing information. She should be dead for that. But as he stared at her file photo, same face but different eyes, confident instead of terrified, he found himself reluctant to give that order, because Antonio Valentini didn't become the most powerful man in New York by ignoring instincts, and his instincts were screaming that Monique Laurent was running from something that scared her more than he did. He wanted to know what and why. And why, despite everything. He'd felt his pulse quicken when she'd looked up at him with those frightened doe eyes. Domenico, he called. His consigliere entered. Si, capo? The maid, Monique. I want surveillance on her, 24/7, and find out what happened 2 years ago, why she ran, who she's running from. You think she's a threat? Antonio considered. A woman who could speak 6 languages, who'd worked at the UN, who'd given up everything to scrub his flaws. That wasn't normal desperation. I think she's hiding something, and I want to know what. What he didn't say, couldn't say even to his most trusted advisor, was that he also wanted to know why the sight of her trembling hands had made him want to comfort her instead of interrogate her. Antonio Valentini didn't do comfort, didn't do soft, but something about Monique made him want to try. 2 weeks passed. Monique felt eyes on her constantly now. Not Antonio's directly, but his men's. She was being watched, followed, evaluated. She grew more paranoid, more careful, spoke even less, became even more invisible, until the night everything changed. The mansion hosted a party, a lavish affair that drew New York's elite. Politicians, judges, businessmen, all of them in Antonio Valentini's pocket, whether they admitted it or not. Monique worked the event, serving champagne to women dripping in diamonds and men who could buy and sell lives. She was refilling a tray in the kitchen when she heard raised voices from the terrace. Mr. Valentini will hear about this. A woman's angry voice, sharp with privilege. Monique glanced through the service door. A blonde woman in a designer gown was berating Carmen, who stood frozen with a wine stain spreading across the marble floor. "Stupid clumsy. Do you know how much these shoes cost?" "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't—" Carmen's voice shook. "You didn't what? Think? Of course you didn't. Someone like you— That's enough." Antonio's voice cut through the tirade like a blade. He materialized from the shadows, and the blonde woman's face transformed, anger replaced by simpering sweetness. "Antonio, darling, your staff is utterly incompetent. This person ruined my Louboutins." Antonio looked at Carmen, then at the shoes, then at the woman. When he spoke, his voice was ice. "Accidents happen, Francesca. I'm sure Carmen didn't intend—" "Of course she didn't intend. People like her don't think—" "Enough." The single word carried such authority that Francesca actually stepped back. "Carmen, clean this up. Mrs. Chen will ensure you have proper training." He turned to Francesca. "As for you, perhaps it's time to leave my party." The woman's mouth fell open. "Now you're ejecting me? For a maid? I'm ejecting you for being unkind in my home." His expression remained pleasant, but his eyes were arctic. "I have zero tolerance for that." Monique watched, stunned, as Antonio dismissed the wealthy socialite like she was nothing. Watched as he gently helped Carmen up, murmured something in Italian that made her relax. Who was this man? Mafia boss, killer, but defending a maid's dignity. As if sensing her gaze, Antonio's eyes found hers across the terrace. For a heartbeat, they simply looked at each other. Then someone called his name, and the moment shattered. The party continued. Monique worked on autopilot, her mind replaying that scene. The casual cruelty of wealth versus Antonio's unexpected kindness. It didn't fit. Nothing about him fit the monster she'd expected. Near midnight, she was carrying used glasses to the kitchen when she heard voices from the library, low, angry in rapid Italian. "The Russians are pushing too hard. We need to respond. Violence will bring federal attention. Not responding makes us look weak." Monique shouldn't have stopped, shouldn't have listened, but old habits died hard, and her translator brain automatically processed the conversation. They were planning something big. A hit on a Russian lieutenant named Volkov. She hurried to the kitchen, pulse racing. She didn't want this information, didn't want to know. Knowledge was dangerous. "Monique," Mrs. Chen appeared. "The library needs fresh ice. Take this up." "No, not the library, not while they were— Now, please." With trembling hands, Monique loaded the ice bucket and headed upstairs. She knocked softly. Enter." She pushed the door open. 5 men sat in leather chairs, cigars burning, whiskey glowing amber in crystal glasses. Antonio at the center, as always. "Ice, gentlemen." She kept her voice steady, her eyes down. She was setting the bucket on the sidebar when she heard it, a name that made her blood freeze. "Mikhail Volkov has connections to the Bratva in Brighton Beach. If we touch him, we're declaring war on—" Someone switched to English, perhaps sensing her presence. But it was too late. She'd heard enough. Mikhail Volkov. She knew that name. 2 years ago, when she'd been translating for what she thought was a legitimate business, Mikhail Volkov's name had appeared in documents. Documents describing routes for human trafficking. Documents she'd tried to report before she'd been threatened. If Antonio Valentini was planning to kill Volkov, is something wrong? Antonio's voice cut through her spinning thoughts. She realized she'd frozen, ice bucket forgotten. 5 pairs of eyes watched her. "No, sir. Sorry, sir." She finished quickly and turned to leave. "Wait. Oh, God. Not again." "Come here," Antonio commanded. On shaking legs, she approached. He gestured to the chair beside him. Not behind, not at a distance. Beside him as if she were an equal. "Sit." "Sir, I should—" "Sit, Monique." She sat. The other men exchanged glances, clearly confused about why their boss was inviting a maid to join them. Antonio poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a glass and handed it to her. "You look like you need this." She shouldn't take it, shouldn't blur her awareness. But her hands were shaking so badly that she accepted, grateful for something to do with them. "Gentlemen," Antonio said, "this is Monique. She's worked in my home for 3 months. In that time, she's been professional, discreet, and trustworthy." He looked at her. "Qualities I value." What was he doing? Why was he— "Tell me, Monique, do you know why discretion matters in a house like mine?" It was a test. She understood that much. Because you have enemies, sir. People who would use information against you. Smart girl. And if you overheard something, hypothetically something you weren't meant to hear, what would you do? The whiskey burned going down. I'd forget I heard it, sir. Why? Because it's none of my business, and because... She met his eyes, surprising herself. Because survival means knowing when to speak and when to be silent. Something like respect flickered across his face. Indeed it does. He dismissed the other men with a gesture, and they left, though not without curious backward glances. Suddenly, Monique was alone with Antonio Valentini in the library, silence stretching between them. I know who you are, he said quietly. Her heart stopped. Dr. Monique Laurent, UN translator, disappeared 2 years ago. He swirled his whiskey. Want to tell me why? There was no point lying now. You already know why. I know you saw something. I know you ran. I know someone threatened you. He leaned forward. What I don't know is whether you're a threat to me now. I'm not. I swear I'm not. I'm just trying to survive. By working in a mafia boss's home? Interesting survival strategy? Despite everything, she almost laughed. I didn't know who you were when I applied. By the time I figured it out, I couldn't leave without drawing attention. And now? Now, I'm trapped. The admission came out bitter. I can't go to the police. They might be connected to the people who threatened me. I can't go back to my old life. They'll find me. And I can't leave here without you wondering why and possibly... She swallowed. Possibly deciding I'm a liability. Antonio studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. A real smile that transformed his face from coldly handsome to devastatingly beautiful. You're right. You are trapped. He set down his glass. But perhaps not the way you think. I don't understand. I could kill you, Monique. Should kill you, probably. You've overheard things. You understand Italian. You're a security risk. He paused. But I'm not going to. Why not? Because I've been having you investigated for 2 weeks. My people found your story, found what you witnessed, found the men who threatened you. His expression hardened. And I know they're connected to Mikhail Volkov. The room spun. What? The trafficking ring you discovered? Volkov's operation, the men who threatened you, his men. Antonio stood, moving to the window. Which means, Monique, that you and I have a common enemy. She couldn't process this. Couldn't breathe. I'm going to kill Volkov, Antonio continued conversationally. Not just for territorial reasons, though that matters, but because human trafficking... His jaw clenched. That's a line I don't cross. Ever. And I destroy those who do. I don't understand. You're... She stopped herself. A criminal? Yes. A killer? Also yes. He turned to face her. But I have principles, Monique. Rules I don't break. And hurting innocents, especially children, is one of them. She stared at this complicated man who killed but drew moral lines, who commanded absolute loyalty but defended his staff's dignity, who terrified her but somehow made her feel safe. What do you want from me? She whispered. Antonio crossed the room, stopping inches from her chair. This close she could see the weariness in his eyes, the burden of command he carried. Help me destroy him, he said. You know things, saw documents, can testify if needed. He crouched down, bringing them eye to eye. Help me and I'll make sure you're free, really free. New identity that actually works. Money to start over anywhere. Protection. And if I refuse, then you're free to leave right now. I'll have my men set you up somewhere safe. But Volkov lives. His eyes bored into hers. Can you live with that? Knowing what he does? Knowing you could have helped stop him? It was manipulation. She knew it was manipulation, but it was also truth. 2 years of running. 2 years of hiding. 2 years of knowing that monster was still out there, destroying lives. What do you need me to do? She asked. Antonio's smile was predatory. Tell me everything you remember. Every detail. Every document, every name. She took a breath and began to talk. Hours later, she'd told him everything. Routes, names, transaction details her photographic memory had retained. Antonio listened, asked sharp questions, filled pages with notes. When she finally finished, exhausted, dawn was breaking outside the library windows. You should rest, Antonio said. Tomorrow, today, will be difficult. She stood, legs stiff from sitting. What happens now? Now? He walked her to the door. Now you stay close, under my protection. Volkov will know soon enough that we're moving against him. When he does, he'll come for anyone connected to his operation. Including me. Including you. But he won't get near you. The promise in his voice was steel. I protect what's mine, Monique. The possessive pronoun made her shiver, but not from fear. I'm not yours, she said softly. Not yet, he agreed, eyes holding hers. But you will be. It should have terrified her. This powerful, dangerous man claiming her, but instead, heat pooled in her belly and her breath came faster. This is insane, she whispered. See, completely insane. He reached out, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. The touch was gentle, reverent. But I stopped fighting it 2 weeks ago. The moment I realized you'd lied to my face and I wanted to kiss you instead of kill you. Antonio, go rest, Tesoro. Treasure. We'll talk more later. She fled to her room, heart pounding, mind reeling. Everything had changed. She was no longer a hiding maid. She was Antonio Valentini's. What? Ally. Asset. Mine, he'd said. And God help her, part of her wanted that to be true. The next week passed in a blur of planning. Monique no longer cleaned. Instead, she sat in war rooms with Antonio's inner circle, pointing out details in documents, identifying faces in photographs. They treated her with respect now, at Antonio's command. Though she caught whispers, Il Capo's pet, his new obsession, she tried to stay professional, tried to ignore the way Antonio's eyes followed her, the way he positioned himself between her and any perceived threat, the way he'd taken to saying her name like a caress. But it was hard when he'd moved her from the servants' quarters to a guest suite in the main house. For your protection, he'd said. The room was larger than her old apartment. Marble bathroom, balcony overlooking the ocean, a bed big enough for 4 people, and guards posted outside her door 24/7. One night, unable to sleep, she ventured to the kitchen for tea. Froze when she found Antonio already there, shirtless, making espresso at 2 in the morning. Can't sleep either, he asked without turning around. She should leave, should retreat to the safety of her room. Instead, she stepped inside. Too much in my head, she admitted. He poured 2 small cups, handed her one. Up close, shirtless, he was overwhelming, muscular chest with that elaborate tattoo extending from his arm across his shoulder. Scars marked his skin, bullet wound on his left side, knife mark on his ribs. Evidence of violence survived. How did you get that one? She gestured to the bullet scar before thinking. Antonio glanced down. Careless. I was 22, thought I was invincible. He touched the mark. My father's rival sent an assassin. Learned that day that being a Valentini means always watching your back. Your father, dead, murdered when I was 25, which is how I became Don at an age when most men are starting entry-level jobs. His voice carried old pain. 3 weeks after his funeral, I killed the men responsible. Established my rule. Do you regret it? Killing them? No. This life? He considered. Sometimes. Late at night when it's quiet and I can't sleep. I wonder what I could have been if I'd been born into a different family. The vulnerability in his admission shocked her. This wasn't the cold boss. This was just Antonio. Tired, lonely, trapped by circumstances as surely as she'd been. What would you have been? She asked softly. He smiled, something sad in it. Probably something boring. An architect, maybe. I always loved buildings, how they're constructed, the blend of art and engineering. He shook his head. Stupid, right? The Don of New York fantasizing about designing houses. It's not stupid. She set down her cup, moved closer without thinking. It's human. Their eyes met and held. The kitchen felt too small, the air too thick. Antonio reached out slowly, giving her time to retreat, and cupped her cheek with his large, scarred hand. What are you doing to me, Monique Laurent? He whispered. I've had beautiful women, dozens, but none of them made me forget how to breathe. Her heart hammered. This is a bad idea. Terrible idea, he agreed, thumb stroking her cheekbone. You work for me. You're under my protection. There's a power imbalance. Every reason to walk away. Then why aren't you? Because when I look at you, I don't see an employee. I see someone brave enough to risk everything for strangers, someone who gave up her entire life rather than be complicit in evil. His eyes blazed. I see someone I want to know, to protect. He stopped himself, jaw clenching. To what? She breathed. To keep. The word came out rough. Which terrifies me, Tesoro, because I don't keep people. I use them, control them, then let them go. Maybe I don't want to be kept. Then what do you want? The question hung between them, loaded with possibility. What did she want? Safety? Freedom? Or this dangerous, impossible thing building between them? Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. Antonio's expression changed instantly. The vulnerable man disappeared, replaced by the cold boss. He read the message, and his face went hard. Volkov knows. He sent men. Her blood chilled. Where? Here. 20 minutes out. He was already moving, barking orders into the phone. Wake everyone, full lockdown. Get Monique to the safe room. No. She grabbed his arm. I can help. I know his operations, You can help by staying alive. He gripped her shoulders. Please, Monique, let me protect you. Men poured into the house. Antonio's soldiers, armed and moving with military precision. The mansion transformed into a fortress. Monique found herself ushered to a hidden room behind the library, steel-reinforced, stocked with supplies. Stay here, the guard commanded. Don't come out for anyone except the Don. The door sealed, and she was alone in the silence. Minutes crawled by. She could hear nothing. The room was soundproofed. Was there fighting, shooting? Was Antonio safe? An hour passed. Then 2. She paced, imagining worst-case scenarios. What if Volkov's men broke through? What if Antonio was hurt? Or worse? Finally, the door opened. Antonio stood there, suit jacket gone, shirt bloodied but alive. It's over, he said. They're dead or captured. She ran to him without thinking, and he caught her, arms wrapping tight. She felt him shudder, felt the tension drain from his body as he held her. Thought you were hurt, she mumbled against his chest. Not my blood, he assured her. Mostly not, anyway. She pulled back, scanning him for injuries. A graze on his arm, shallow, nothing serious. You scared me, she said. You scared me first. When I realized they were coming for you specifically, his voice roughened. Volkov found out about you, about what you know. He sent 15 men, Monique. 15. Just to kill you. The reality sank in. She'd almost died. Would have if not for Antonio's protection. What happens now? Antonio's eyes were dark, determined. Now we end this. Tomorrow night, Volkov has a meeting at his club in Brighton Beach. My informant confirmed it. We're moving then. You're going to kill him. I'm going to eliminate a threat to you, to my family, to countless innocents. No remorse. No doubt. Will you judge me for it? She should. Should recoil from this man who spoke of murder so casually. But when she looked at him, really looked, she saw a protector, someone who'd kill to keep her safe. No, she whispered. I won't judge you. Something blazed in his eyes. Then he was kissing her. Hard, desperate, consuming. She gasped against his mouth, and he gentled, the kiss transforming from possession to promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. After tomorrow, he said, you're free. New identity, new life. Anywhere you want. I promise. And us? There is no us, Tesoro. You deserve better than a life in the shadows. Better than always looking over your shoulder, wondering if today's the day someone puts a bullet in the man you... He stopped, swallowed hard. Just be free. Be happy. That's enough for me. He was letting her go. Despite everything, he was giving her the choice. She should take it. Should run as far as possible from this dangerous world. Instead, she grabbed his bloodied shirt and pulled him down for another kiss. What if I don't want better? She breathed. What if I want this? Want you? Monique, after tomorrow, she interrupted, we talk, really talk, about possibilities, about what this could be. She cupped his face. Because I'm tired of running, Antonio, and you're the first place that's felt like home in 2 years. He kissed her again, soft and reverent, like she was precious, like she was his. And maybe she realized she was. The next evening, Monique watched from the mansion's security room as Antonio and his men prepared. They moved with military efficiency, checking weapons, reviewing blueprints, synchronizing watches. Antonio looked like death in a black suit. Every inch the Don, every inch the killer he had to be. Before he left, he came to say goodbye, found her pacing, unable to sit still. Hey, he caught her hands. I'll be back. Promise me. Her voice broke. Promise you'll come back. I promise, Tesoro, I've survived worse than Mikhail Volkov. He kissed her forehead. Stay here. Stay safe. And when I get back... His eyes held promises he didn't voice. Then he was gone. and she was left with nothing but prayers and hope. Hours crawled by. She watched security feeds, the mansion's perimeter, empty streets, nothing happening. They'd all gone to Brighton Beach, all gone to war. At 11 p.m. her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thought he could protect you. He can't. I'm coming for you, Dr. Laurent, and he won't arrive in time to save you. Her blood froze. Volkov, but how? He should be at the club, should be dealing with Antonio's attack. Unless this was a trap. Unless Volkov had known about the plan and stayed behind. She called Antonio. No answer. Called his consigliere. Nothing. Then she heard it. Glass breaking downstairs. Footsteps. Voices speaking Russian. The guards outside her door moved, and she heard shots, screams, then silence. She was alone, trapped, and Volkov's men were in the house. Think, the panic room. If she could reach it, the door burst open. 3 men, guns drawn, and behind them, Mikhail Volkov himself, tall, blonde, with eyes like chips of ice. Dr. Laurent, he said in accented English. We meet at last. She backed toward the balcony. Antonio will kill you. Antonio is busy dying in Brighton Beach. I sent him to slaughter my own men. Bait he couldn't resist. Volkov smiled. By now the Bratva has him surrounded. 30 to his 8. He won't survive. No, God, no. Now you, Volkov continued, will tell me exactly what you told Valentini. Every detail, every name. He gestured, and one of his men grabbed her. Or I'll hurt you in ways that make you beg for death. She fought, but he was stronger. Dragged her toward the door, toward whatever hell awaited. Then, boom! The window exploded inward. Something metal crashed through. Smoke grenade. The room filled with choking fog. Gunfire. Screams. Bodies hitting the floor. Strong arms wrapped around her waist, yanking her backward through the broken window onto the balcony. She glimpsed a face. Antonio, covered in blood, eyes wild. Hold on, he snarled. And then they were falling. She screamed as they dropped. 1 story, 2, before landing hard in bushes below. Pain exploded through her ribs, but Antonio hauled her up, half carrying, half dragging her toward the garage. Behind them, more gunfire, shouting in Russian and Italian. They reached an SUV. Antonio threw her inside, already moving before the door closed. Brighton Beach was a trap, he said tersely, driving like a demon possessed. Realized it halfway there. Turned back. If I'd been 5 minutes later, he didn't finish, didn't need to. You're hurt, she said, seeing the blood. So much blood. Been shot worse, stabbed worse, this is nothing. But his knuckles were white on the wheel, and she realized he was lying. Antonio. Not now, Tesoro. First we survive, then we talk. He drove to a safe house in Queens, a nondescript building that could be anything, parked underground and all but carried her inside. The safe house was Spartan, concrete floors, basic furniture, but clean and stocked with medical supplies. Take off your shirt, she commanded. Monique, now. He obeyed and she sucked in a breath. 2 bullet wounds, one through his left shoulder, another grazing his ribs, plus cuts, bruises, evidence of hand-to-hand combat. You said it was nothing. Her hands shook as she cleaned the wounds. Compared to losing you, it is nothing. She pressed gauze to the shoulder wound and he hissed, You could have died. So could you. And that, he caught her wrist, that would have destroyed me, Monique. Do you understand? Not killed me. Destroyed me. Made me into something worse than I already am. Tears burned her eyes. This is insane. We barely know each other. 2 weeks ago you didn't know I existed. 2 weeks ago I was surviving. Now I'm living. He cupped her face with his bloody hand. You woke something in me I thought died with my father. Something human. Something that cares more about someone else than myself. Love? She whispered. Terrifying, isn't it? He smiled, wincing as the expression pulled his injuries. I love you, Monique Laurent. Completely. Possibly insanely, definitely unwisely. She laughed through tears. I love you too. And yes, it's all of those things. They kissed, desperate and clinging, tasting blood and tears and something like hope. When they finally pulled apart, Antonio was serious. Volkov's still out there, this isn't over. Then we finish it. Together. Together, he agreed. No more protecting you from the sidelines. No more treating you like fragile glass. You're strong enough to stand beside me. Partners? In everything. He kissed her again. But first, We deal with this shoulder. And then his phone rang. He answered, listened. His expression transformed from weary to predatory. They found him, he said. Volkov. He's holed up in a warehouse in Red Hook, trapped by my men. Let's go. Monique, you don't have to. He threatened to hurt me in ways that made me beg for death. Her voice was steel. I'm there when you end him. I need to see it finished. Antonio studied her, then nodded. Get changed. We leave in 5 minutes. An hour later, they stood outside a warehouse surrounded by Antonio's soldiers. 50 men, all armed, all loyal. He's inside, Domenico reported. Alone. His men abandoned him when they realized they were outnumbered. Antonio nodded, handed Monique a gun. Do you know how to use this? UN training, she said. I'm not a killer, Antonio, but I can defend myself. That's all I need. He turned to his men. Stay out here, this is personal. They entered together. The warehouse was dark, cavernous. Somewhere inside, Volkov waited. Come out, Mikhail, Antonio called. It's over. Die with dignity. Laughter echoed. Dignity? From the man who fell in love with his maid? Volkov emerged from shadows, gun raised. Pathetic. Your father would be ashamed. My father taught me to protect what matters, to never let evil flourish unchallenged. Antonio moved, positioning himself between Volkov and Monique. You traffic children, Mikhail. There is no redemption for that. And you think you're better? You kill, you steal, you corrupt. I do, but I never hurt innocents. Never broke the one rule that matters. Volkov's gun swung toward Monique. Antonio fired first. The shot echoed like thunder. Volkov fell, clutching his shoulder. His gun skittered away. Antonio walked over, stood above him. You threatened her. Came to my home. Tried to take what's mine. He pressed the gun to Volkov's temple. Any last words? You'll die for this. The Bratva is already negotiating with me. They're pragmatic. You're not. Antonio pulled the trigger. The shot echoed. Then silence. It was over. Monique stood frozen, processing what she'd witnessed. The finality, the violence, the necessity. Antonio returned to her, gun lowered, eyes searching her face. Are you okay? Was she? She'd just watched a man die. Should feel horror, disgust. Instead, she felt relief. It was over. The monster who'd destroyed her life, who'd hurt so many, was gone. I'm okay, she said, and meant it. Antonio pulled her close, and she went willingly, resting her head against his chest. Heard his heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. What happens now? She asked. Now? He kissed the top of her head. Now we live, Tesoro, really live. No more hiding, no more fear. Together, if you'll have me. A criminal, a killer, a man with more blood on his hands than he can count. She pulled back, looked into his eyes, saw the fear there, fear that she'd reject him now that she'd seen what he truly was. I'll have you, she said softly. All of you, the good, the bad, the dangerous. Because you're also the man who defended his staff's dignity, who keeps principles even in darkness, who risked his life to save mine. She touched his face. You're not just a criminal, Antonio. You're a good man in a bad world, doing what you must to survive and protect those you love. His eyes gleamed with unshed tears. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you have me anyway. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise, the kiss of someone who'd found home in another person. When they finally left the warehouse, dawn was breaking over New York. A new day, a new beginning, together. 3 years later, Monique stood on the terrace of the Valentini mansion watching the ocean, the same ocean she'd seen from her tiny maid's room years ago, but the view was different now, better. Behind her, the mansion buzzed with life. Antonio's men coming and going, staff preparing dinner, the sounds of home. Arms wrapped around her waist, and she leaned back into Antonio's embrace. Thinking deep thoughts, Mrs. Valentini, he murmured against her hair. Mrs. Valentini. She'd taken his name, his life, his world, and somehow, impossibly, she was happy. Just remembering, she said. 3 years ago I was terrified, hiding, running. And now? Now I'm home. She turned in his arms. Really home. He smiled, that devastating smile he saved only for her. I love you, Tesoro. I love you too. They kissed as the sun set over the ocean. Two people who'd found each other in darkness, and built something beautiful in the light. Behind them, Domenico cleared his throat. "Boss, the city council is here for dinner and—" He smirked. "Dr. Laurent's translation services might be needed. Councilman Zhang only speaks Mandarin." Monique laughed. She'd returned to translation work, but now for Antonio's legitimate business ventures. Turns out a mafia boss with principles could actually do some good when properly motivated. "Duty calls," she told Antonio. "Together?" he asked, offering his arm. "Always together," she agreed. They walked inside, side by side, equal partners in a life they'd built from ashes. And if that life was occasionally dangerous, occasionally complicated, occasionally terrifying, well, Monique wouldn't trade it for anything. Because she'd learned something important. Sometimes the most unexpected places become home, and sometimes the most dangerous men have the truest hearts. Antonio Valentini had saved her life. But more than that, he'd given her a reason to live it. And that, she thought as they entered the dining room together, was worth everything. This story has reached its conclusion. If it touched your heart in any way, please leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional, intense love stories. New stories arrive soon. Until next time.